to the Devy Devotional Podcast, a show devoted to college prospect evaluation with a fantasy football focus. With your hosts, John Arrington, Aaron Wilcox, and Andy Starr. This podcast brings you actionable strategies and player-driven analysis for your Devy, C2C, and Dynasty leagues. Let's dive in.
Let's dive into Devy. Welcome to the Devy Devotional, where we stay devoted to Devy. I'm your host, John Arrington, and tonight we are going to be talking about the positional groups, the best positional groups in all of college football. And just to make it a little more fun, a little better, we're going to go ahead and make it a mock draft just to have some fun with it and see who wins, see who ends up on top. I can't do it by myself, though, so I got to bring on Aaron and Andy. Tonight, I'm hoping and praying that we were already doing better than we were last week. I was so mad about not being able to really be a part of the hot takes pod or be as much of a part as I would have liked to have been. I would have liked to have argued my takes a little bit more than they got argued by just me typing into the chat and everything. So glad to be back. Hopefully we're all good here. I actually did get a different internet provider out here because I was like, you're out, new one's in, we're going to fix this, we're not going to mess around. So hopefully we're back. Like I said, Andy, how are you doing tonight, buddy?
Great, and your new internet provider sounds excellent. It's doing a great job so far. So thankfully, we won't have those issues this week. Aaron actually retweeted the results from last year's positional draft, which I think, now that we have the benefit of hindsight, I definitely won. But I guess that's up for debate and discussion. But I think that I did the best. I'm not saying I was perfect, but. And I feel confident that I have a strategy I'm going to do this time around, and I'm going to, again, come out victorious.
Well, I can promise you that I did. I have not strategized anything. I was doing a lot of other stuff today, and we had talked about doing this, and I thought about, hey, I'm going to sit down. I'm really going to make a plan because last year I don't think I did the strategy quite right, and then I never did that. So I'm going in blind. But Aaron, what about you? You ready for it?
Yeah, I'm ready for it, and I'm kind of pumped up. And Andy's giving me some whiteboard. Blackboard material there. Last year, Twitter voted me the winner, and we'll see. But at quarterback, I had Arch Manning last year. John had Lenora Sellers, and whoever else was there. And Andy had Florida, for Florida QB.
Yeah, that was the one thing that didn't work out for me, unfortunately.
and I liked my running back picks a little bit. I mean, not to toot my own horn, but Notre Dame with two first-round picks, Notre Dame and Jadarian Price. And then, Bama wide receivers, Georgia tight ends. Win some, you lose some. So we'll see. But, no, I'm always excited. This is second year we're doing this one, and I think it'll be fun again.
Yeah, I can tell you that the South Carolina quarterback room did not win me anything last year. Maybe I meant this year. I meant 2026 for that. No, we'll see here in a little bit. Auburn wide receiver room, not bad. Auburn as a team, not good. Auburn wide receiver room, pretty damn good last year. So, I'm okay with my draft. But like I said, I didn't go in with the right strategy this time. I'm prepared. I'm ready to go. I know what I'm doing. No, I really don't. But real quick before we dive into this mock draft, before we dive into the positional groups, I did want to talk just for a split second about the craziness that's going on with NCAA or the lack thereof NCAA with professional football players going back to college and all that. It seems like the major conferences, the SEC and the Big Ten, are already saying like, hey, this isn't gonna happen. But then we see people like Adam Schefter tweeting that Daquan Wright's going to LSU and things like that. So I mean, I guess there's a lot up in the air right now. There's a lot going on. I wish that it would all go away because honestly, it is kind of becoming a nightmare for commissioners and things. We thought the whole Brendan Sorsby thing was going to be an issue. Well, now what if there's 20 players in any given league that now are going back to the college side? You've already done your drafts. You've already kicked people off your squad. That guy had Daquan Wright, but he dropped him because he was in the NFL, and now he's back. Then, like, there's so much going on. Real quick, what do you guys think about it before we get out of here? Aaron, what do you think?
Yeah, no, it is crazy and it's kind of mayhem out there. And I'm not being too strict on, managers. For example, if I'm commissioning a league or running a league, my opinion is, if you dropped him thinking, what, he's not going to make much of an impact on the Browns and nobody else has claimed him, whatever. I mean, you could have him back if you really want him. I don't know if he'll actually play Daquan Wright, that is, just because he was literally on the Browns and just got dropped. And now he's wanting to go to, LSU, but then the SEC is now filing, so that can't happen. It's mayhem out there. Don't love it, but they need to just get through this off season, and I think we'll have a little bit more structure hopefully in future seasons now that they've done this new eligibility rule and all that.
Yeah, I would agree. This is going to be the only offseason where we have this problem because these guys were leaving campus and leaving the teams under the pretext that they were no longer eligible, which, of course, once the NCAA put in their 5-year eligibility rule, they would have been eligible had they, I guess at the time they couldn't have decided to stay, but now because the rules in place, they could stay. But once some of these guys went through the draft process and signed professional contracts, I kind of stand on the side of the Big Ten and the SEC right now, where it doesn't benefit anyone to bring in these guys literally 2 weeks before the season starts, and maybe potentially have to cut somebody else who's been with your team all season, just so this person who was an undrafted free agent in the NFL can come back and play one more season of college football. I don't think that's good for the sport. So I'm glad that this is the only off season where we're going to have to deal with it, hopefully. But I do think that it is the right move to just say, listen, we're not letting these guys back in, and we're going to decide on it as a conference as a whole. So one team isn't bending the rules, and another team might not. You see Ohio State come out and say or Oregon, I should say, like, we're not letting these guys back in, whereas like LSU seemed more open to it. But now the conferences are saying no, flat across the board, we're not allowing it. So that's good to see that everyone's kind of on the same page now.
Yeah, well, actually, the latest one that I saw was Thomas Castellanos was rumored to be going to Texas Tech, or possibly going to Texas Tech. So just think about how everything that's going on with them this year or this offseason, and then people get, especially like Will Hammond, getting so excited about him with with C2C drafts and everything and supplemental drafts, and then next thing you know, Thomas Castellanos comes in and takes over after a couple of weeks. That would be wild. But I hope that they kind of squash it. I do feel bad for the kids, but at the same time, like, I don't really think it's one of those things where like you're too far gone at that point. Like, I understand the argument, but once you actually step foot on an NFL team, like, yeah, let's just kind of move on. So I just want to touch on to see if you guys had any kind of like differing opinions. If I don't know if there's anyone that truly thinks like, oh man, these guys deserve to go back and whatever. I guess let us know if you do. If you really feel a certain way. I feel like most fans of college football, of real football, like, we just want to get. I think that's what we're getting to, the point where we're trying to make it more simple. Okay, now you just have 5 years, like that kind of stuff, and yet somehow it's made it so much more difficult. It's like, like, let's just get to the point where we actually do the 5 years thing, and then hopefully we can just be done with all this nonsense. But Yeah, enough with that. Let's dive into this draft. But first, I was gonna just set a random draft order or whatever, but we haven't done a 100-yard rush in a little bit, so I figured let's have some fun with it and see who wins. Da-da. Share the screen here, and I set this up earlier, so it's already happened. I know what happens. They don't. Andy and Aaron don't, but we will do the play by play anyway.
I
All right,
stretched
here
this
we
morning,
go.
so I'm feeling good about my odds.
All right, let's see. I go off to a hot start. Aaron
Yeah,
right
he
there
does.
jumping out to a lead, but Andy catches
No,
up and
see,
surpasses me.
that's
He
oh,
could feel it, but then John goes right back to the lead. Aaron is not. He said he wasn't feeling well earlier, so it makes a lot of sense.
I
He's kind of lagging
I
behind.
did.
there we
Yes, yes.
go.
If anybody's wondering, I am under the weather tonight, both in the 100-yard rush and just actually.
Andy is at the 5-yard
Oh
line. He's about
God,
to break it, and then he hits a wall. Just absolutely hits a wall. John gets first, and let's see who gets
are you
second.
kidding me?
Aaron catches up and gets second after all that. Andy's still technically not done now. He's finally done. I've never seen that in a 100-yard dash. He was at the
Oh
5
my
yard
God,
line for
that was
what
like
seems
tortoise in the hair. I just sat there at the finish line because I thought I'd already won.
yeah, it really was. You had like a campfire going and everything.
Yeah, I was already cracking the champagne.
Oh, that was too funny. Yeah, I watched that earlier and I was like, that's gonna be so perfect for the stream just because it was awesome. But because of that, it'll be me drafting first, Aaron drafting second, and Andy third. But we will be doing it snake, so Andy will have 2 picks to make up for it. And then make things hopefully a little easier. I don't know if that works with the strategy that he was going with because he said he was really the only one that actually planned this stuff out. So we'll have to see if that actually works strategy wise or not. But just to make sure that we're 100% clear about this, we're going to be drafting the positional groups of the college team. So we're going to say, if I draft the Tulane running back groups, and I say they are the best running back group in all of college football, and then Andy says he's drafting the Mercer quarterbacks, and I mean you can make an argument that one quarterback could be the reason why a group is great. You can say no, there's 2 or 3 quarterbacks, and that's the reason why. You can make your own arguments, you can do whatever, but we're drafting the positional groups from these teams and we get all of them. We don't just get one player. We get every single running back, every single wide receiver, every single quarterback, whatever it might be. And we will also be doing tight ends as well. So I am up first. I have not prepared for this whatsoever. I almost wish that I wasn't first, but here we are. And I'm trying to think here how I want to do this. I wish I had strategized a little bit because I think, oh man, no, you know what? I think I just got to go. Man, I got to go Ohio State. I got to go Ohio State wide receivers. You know, I I don't know that I even agree with this 100%, but obviously having Jeremiah Smith really does help. But with the Ohio State wide receivers, you're getting Jeremiah Smith, you're getting Chris Henry Jr., a 5-star wide receiver that was easily a top 3, if not a top 1 wide receiver in this class. You're also getting Aaron's favorite player in I can't even remember his name right now, Brody something or other.
Brock Boyd.
Brock Boyd, yeah. Brock Boyd, who's become like the new hotness in recent weeks and months. Obviously, has done a lot of things in camp and whatever else. But then you also have Jaquindon Guilford, who was one of the biggest, hottest names in spring. And, he was supposed to be the hotness then. We know that a lot of these guys flame out. Brandon Ennis is still there. There's still some other players that are involved. But when you already have by far the best wide receiver in college football at the top, and then you add in those other 5-star players and everything, I think I just kind of have to. I know there's some other teams that are going to come close, and this might not be like the greatest time to have the 101, but I think I'll still get a decent amount of votes just for Jeremiah Smith by himself.
Nice, John. I cannot fault you whatsoever with that strategy. Yeah, I mean, you get the best college wide receiver out there, plus a pretty deep room, talented 5 stars, and Brock Boyd, of course. So, any other thoughts, Andy, or do you want to hear my
Well,
pick?
following in my footsteps from last year as well, which I think I was using the same mindset. Like, let me get the best college football player with the 101 and kind of figure it out from there afterwards. I'm not sure that was the best thing to do. I kind of feel exactly how you're feeling right now at the time. But you're locking up the best player in college football. You're getting a room that's just traditionally always gets the first round draft pick at the wide receiver position, which will be no different next year. You got to assume it'll probably be no different 2 years and 3 years and 4 years from now too. Um, Assuming everything stays the same. I know that they did lose their wide receiver coach and co-offensive coordinator for many years, Brian Hartline, but I don't think that's going to have a massive impact on the talent that comes out of Ohio State. So I think the pick is fine. Um, I probably would have done the same thing with the 101, and I'm kind of glad I didn't get the 101 if I'm being honest. But
Yeah,
more on that
I
later.
think this is the time when you don't actually want the 101, but it'd be so tough. But I mean, Aaron's here at 102. I wonder if he would have gone the same way, or if he would have gone somewhere else at 101.
Yeah, no, I definitely like the pick, but I would have gone elsewhere. So I'll go
Ooh.
with what I was gonna do if I had the 101, and I'm gonna lock up a quarterback room that is very, very talented at the top end, at the starting quarterback position, but also the depth there, just to me is phenomenal. And same quarterback room that I drafted last year, actually. So Texas, I'm going with Texas quarterback room at 102. It's going to be Arch Manning, of course, starting, experienced guy coming into his second full year starting. And, he definitely improved on the stretch last year, showed why there was hype for him, why there was excitement about him and his name. And then they're bringing in 5-star Diabell, just very talented guy that I definitely love. And they've even got some solid backups there. KJ Lacey was a solid 4-star. There's been some hype saying that he's locked down the QB2 job for now. And then even MJ Morris, if you remember way back, like MJ Morris making some starts in college football. So you have some experience there. Yeah, the depth kind of unmatched. Very few teams could roll out like 4 different quarterbacks that they could confidently play during the season. And I think that Texas is kind of there. I don't think they'll need to be, right? Arch Manning should, be, healthy again and have a consistent season. So I'm locking them up.
I like it. I mean, honestly, I definitely considered it, but I also feel like there's some strong QB rooms, and I mean, I feel like uh, there's a lot of strong positional groups altogether. So this might just be a tough one. Maybe we need to go 2 rounds this time around. I don't know, but I feel like we're definitely. I'm feeling better about players this year, and obviously we've said that it's a better class, a deeper class, whatever. Maybe we don't have the highest of end studs that we thought we were going to have at this point, but we have the potential for that with some growth from some of these players. But yeah, the Texas QBs, I definitely considered it. Obviously Diabell's unproven, but a lot of hype for him as a player. I've drafted him in a couple spots. Aaron, I think you've drafted him a couple spots. Andy, I don't know if you ended up getting any of him because I kept taking him in all of our drafts, but I definitely like the pick there. And then obviously Arch is my QB1 and Devy, so hard to argue with that. That being said, he's not a tier 1 player. He's not even a tier 2 player. I don't have any in Devy Beth. So he is my QB1 in Devy, but that doesn't mean that he's just 100% set in stone, like locked in, couldn't possibly fail or anything like that either. So I like Arch. I'm excited about Arch. But he by the end of the year we might be singing a different tune.
Yeah, I like the pick too. I don't remember how the picks fell last year. If this was the first QB room off the board um, in 2025, but like you guys have already mentioned, the room's only gotten better since last year with the addition of Diabell. Like last year, I remember talking about, okay, we're drafting because of Arch, because of Arch Manning solely. Basically, I think Aaron threw out a couple backup quarterback names. I have no idea who they were at the time. Maybe he mentioned them again this year. I don't think anyone cares about those guys. Maybe we should at some point in the future, but it seems unlikely with Diabell there now. But now that they do have that solid 5-star backup, this room's only gotten stronger. So I think that it would, if you're looking at all the rooms for QB, this would probably be my QB room at the top. So I can't be upset with the pick at all.
I like it. I like it. Andy, you are up for two. Has this all played all into your strategy, or did we screw you up?
I kind of like where I'm at right now. I might do something a little bit strange because
Ooh.
of the strategy that I'm cooking up here. But I know what my first round pick is going to be, and I'm going to take a running back room, and I'm going to take the only room that has two of my Devy. I'll say top 10 running backs, potentially top five. Um, but that's going to be Oregon with Jordan Davison and De'Aaron Hill. I think that they are clearly the strongest running back room right now. There's one other team that I would consider to be somewhat close. I'm sure they probably will get drafted. Maybe we'll see. But with those two guys, both true freshmen, both hitting 10% big time run, putting up really good numbers right out the get go, winning the job from a guy who I assume was paid a lot of money to transfer there, and then also kind of taking a lot of work away from a entrenched veteran in Noah Whittington. Not saying Noah Whittington still didn't get his role in that offense, but both Davison and De'Aaron Hill had significant playing time last year as true freshmen, and I think we can only expect that role to grow this year with Whittington departing. So I'm taking them with 103 and feeling pretty good about my running back room here.
Yeah, I definitely cannot argue with it. I guess we can breathe a sigh of relief with Jordan Davison, who supposedly broke his clavicle and then didn't break his clavicle and was back at practice and all that. I guess that's the you got to love college football reporting and all that. We saw he was going to miss 8 weeks, and then next thing you know, he was at practice the next day. So I actually think it's good. I mean, obviously, we're very excited about Jordan Davison. We're very excited about De'Aaron Hill, but I still lean that De'Aaron Hill's more of a sidekick or a change of pace back or whatever more than a workhorse. And so I don't know that you would want him to be the guy that touches the ball 30 times a game or whatever. Where obviously Jordan Davison has that size and the athleticism to go along with it, where you can do that. But then you can go get the almost 15% big time run rate with De'Aaron Hill. That's the kind of guy you want touching 15 times or whatever, maybe not 20 or 30 times. So I actually think it's good for both of them. I think this is one of the few times where we can say we have a pretty good idea of who's going to be touching the ball every week, and it's going to be Jordan Davison and De'Aaron Hill, and I don't think there's going to be too. I'm sure there will be other people touching the ball, but it's not going to be like last year where we had a four-way split, the year prior where we had like a two or three year, three-way split or whatever. I feel like this is going to be pretty clear cut, and Oregon running backs is a great pick there.
Yeah, no, I like the pick, Andy. Both the backs are solid. I mean, I think De'Aaron Hill has a little bit more well-rounded skill set and better skill set for today's NFL, but that's not taken away from Jordan Davison, who definitely showed more athleticism than most people anticipated coming out of high school. Not an efficient player, not that explosive, but certainly showed a great amount of explosiveness, big playability, and power there as a true freshman. So both those true freshmen last year, another year just growing in the weight room, developing, and learning that system. They'll be dangerous at Oregon. I am intrigued where Andy's going next because he has back-to-back picks here.
All right, this is where the strategy comes into play. I'm going to take a tight end room. Which one is... It's like flipping a coin for me, but I'm going to stick to my guns, which I've been saying all year. So, I can't not fall on the sword right now. DJ Vonamy is my tight end one. I'm going to take the Iowa tight end room. I know that's up for debate. I know that, and I would listen to those debates and hear those arguments and not be upset about them because there are other tight ends that I could see, inevitably being the tight end one. But for now, DJ Vonamy is my tight end one. So I'm going to take Iowa's tight end room, who, historically tight end you, so you can't be upset about that too. If we're going to talk about a positional group for a school, I don't know who the next man up is on that team for tight end, but like I said, for this position, it doesn't really matter for me. I'm not looking for the depth in the tight end position. I just want the best one. So for me, that's DJ Vonamy, and I'm going to take Iowa here.
I like it. I don't know how you could forget about Addison Ostrenga, but I guess if you're a casual, you don't really know much about him. But I think you might have overthought this one, just because I get drafting your tight end one, but there's no one else in the room, and so I understand that, but I think there's actually better picks here, and I think you overthought this one. I love playing the game. I'm glad you are playing the game, but I think this one might bite you a little bit. What do you think, Aaron?
Yeah, well, I don't have qualms with it, but I do see where John is coming from 100% as far as not a lot of depth there. People will say Addison Ostrenga or, maybe the former four-star Thomas Mayer, they might get involved. They're not like legitimate pieces, right? They're not high-end tight ends. So I'll have Vonham. He's going to be great this year at Iowa. We'll see what the quarterback room brings, I guess. There's uncertainty there. But this will segue right into my next pick here. So in the second round, John brought up there are better tight end rooms potentially from top to bottom, and I am going to pick up on that cue to not let John snag the best tight end room in the country. So I'm going to select the Oregon tight ends next. Jamari Johnson, probably the tight end one in the class this upcoming year, definitely was more efficient as a receiving option for Oregon last year than first-round pick Kenyon Sadiq. And so I'm not saying Jamari Johnson is a better athlete, because I don't know that he is, but he is a good tight end, a good receiving option. And then you get the depth there. Andrew Olish, former, pretty big-time recruit, and then Kendra Harrison, true freshman, who, he's going early in a lot of supplemental drafts. I don't know. I don't like to take freshmen tight ends in supplemental drafts. I just have never really been that into it, but I get it. There's a lot of athleticism there. He's big, fast, strong guy, already developed body for coming into college. Kendra Harrison could be the future there at the tight end position for Oregon, or they could just continue getting some transfers like they did with Jamari Johnson. So Oregon tight ends, that's next up.
Yeah, I honestly thought that's where you're going, Andy. I really did. I thought you were going to double tap Oregon, and honestly, I don't think I could have really argued with you, for doing it. That being said, I guess if I can argue, because it's my job to argue it, so I will say, it's still Oregon. You still have Dante Moore throwing to you. So you can only get so excited. We talked last week on the little bit that I was on the hot takes pod. We talked about how Kenyon Sadiq was this stud and everything. Oh, 580 yards. So we don't know exactly what we'll be seeing as far as yardage and totals and all that kind of stuff for Jamari Johnson and others. But it's very hard to argue that they're not a talented group.
Yes, and that was definitely the other tight end room that I would have wanted to draft there at that second round turn. But like I said, I didn't want to send mixed signals to our audience. I've been a DJ Vonamy truther since the offseason started, so I'm going to stick with that mentality. I get that there is depth with the freshmen and some of the guys that we really haven't seen some of yet, but I can't even pretend to say that I'm going to be able to project like how a freshman tight end is going to play in NCAA. I know some people might feel confident in that ability. I don't feel confident in my ability to do that. So I'm just going to pick the best player when it comes to tight ends. Like there, in rare instances, maybe like with Georgia at times there was, or even Iowa at times. There's teams that had two really great tight ends on the same team. But for me this year, you're just talking about two tight ends really that I'm excited about. That's why I wanted to make sure that I got at least one of them before you guys got two more picks on me. So that was a strategy anyway for me going tight end there. But I do like I said, if it wasn't Iowa, it was going to be Oregon tight ends for me. So I think that pick makes the most sense here.
Yeah. Well, I think I actually, I didn't necessarily go in with the plan, and obviously we randomized the draft order, so there was no plan as far as like me saying, "Oh, I'm definitely doing this at this pick." But I think it's worked out pretty well for me here because I have the double tap here, and then you guys already picked tight end, so I can just wait until the last pick to pick a tight end. I don't have no reason to pick a tight end right now. So I think that's worked out very well for me with you guys doing that. Even though I feel like I kind of forced Aaron into it, because I think he kind of knew where I was going if he didn't go the Oregon tight ends there. So I'm liking where I'm at here. But honestly, I'm still kind of in that mindset where like there's quite a few rooms that I'm really happy with. For obviously I already picked my wide receivers, so I'm looking at running backs and quarterbacks here, and I mean there's some studly wide receiver rooms. There's some sorry QB and running back rooms here. I mean now I'm having to think: do I go with the stud starter? Do I go with the depth plus the starter? What do I do here? And I'm kind of struggling as I'm doing it, but I think I'm gonna do it. I have I have two players that are. I mean, I know one of them is very controversial, very polarizing as a quarterback prospect and everything. But then I believe there's another player that's waiting in the wings who is a high end prospect who is. A player that I'm expecting to do very well once he actually takes over, and that's Ohio State's quarterback room. I'm going with Julian Sayin and Tavian St. Clair. I just think, I mean, honestly, Tavian St. Clair could have won that job outright over Julian Sayin. There was a time where that was, being said that it could have happened. Obviously, it didn't happen. They generally go with the older player and all that. And I think Julian Sayin has done just fine, even though there's people that absolutely hate him in the community. But I just think that what we've seen with Sayin recently, yes, I understand that Jeremiah Smith will be moving on to the NFL, but we know we have a bunch of five-star prospects. I don't think that's ever going to be an issue for Ohio State QBs and wide receivers. So I'm going with Tavian St. Clair as my like savior coming in next year, and I'm hoping he's going to be a stud. Don't be wrong, there's definitely some other teams where it's not that far off, but I feel like this one's maybe a little more proven already and like ready to go for next year, where we can say we're moving one onto the NFL and then the other one's going to be starting next year, and I feel pretty good about both of them.
Yeah, I mean it's a safe pick. Absolutely, going Ohio State quarterback. We'll see. The ultimate upside that Sayan has, limited mobility, all those things, and recent year, struggles to translate to the NFL level. But at the end of the day, it is safe, right? He's efficient quarterback. He's locked in starter, good weapons, all those things. And Tavian St. Clair, obviously a talented former five-star type of level quarterback. Just haven't seen him yet. So I get why you went there. They were in my top three, so definitely a team that I was considering there if I didn't go Texas right away.
Also, in my top three, probably whatever internal dilemma you were having, I would have probably had the same internal dilemma between who you were, I think, thinking about. I still haven't really decided who I'm going to go with. But yeah, I get where you were going just by having that five-star depth in that in that room makes the pick a little bit easier because I think Julian Sane is one of the more underrated quarterbacks in Devy and C2C. The numbers are fine. I know that people are going to say he doesn't have the arm strength to be an NFL quarterback, make NFL throws. It's worked fine for him in college, and people said that about Jackson Dart too. And Jackson Dart, I still think remains to be seen how successful that he is in the NFL, but it was a heck of a start to his career last year. So, sometimes you just gotta like who are the guys that are making good plays in college, whether or not their arm strength is up to par. Some of the guys with the strongest arms fizzle out the fastest in the NFL. So, at the end of the day, just picking the guys that make the plays is kind of where I lean when it comes to quarterbacks. So I like the pick here, and I probably would have done that as well for the second QB off the board. But I'm with you. There's other options in QB land where you could at least justify a pick.
Yeah, there's at least one team that I feel like is pretty darn close, but I, like everything that you said kind of goes along with my argument, and I agree. That's why I took them here, and now I'm going to go with the Ohio State running backs. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not doing that. As much as Andy would like me to, I'm not taking the Ohio State running backs. He thinks that Bo Jackson's good. We all know it's the Isaiah West show. But we, as he shakes his head, yeah, I am, man. I'm trying to decide. Okay, so this is the question. I think Andy, we did a mock draft not that long ago just by ourselves, right? I don't think Aaron was a part of it, and I had to decide: do I want to do the pandering, or maybe Aaron was there? I don't remember, but I'm like, do I want to do the pandering, or do I want to do what's in my heart? And right now, I'm really trying to figure out because I feel like if I choose this team, I win the draft. But I don't believe in it. I just don't believe in it. And so now I'm trying to decide, am I a real one or do I just care about the clicks and the wins? Screw it. I'm going to go with my heart. I'm going to do the real team that I believe in. I am going with. Hold on one second. And I spelled it wrong, so I'm going to try that one more time. The Louisville running backs.
This was the correct pick, by the way. You did right. I think you're still pandering a little bit too, honestly.
But this is actually my pick in my heart. I have two top 10 running backs in Devy that are at Louisville, and Isaac Brown is my RB1 in Devy, and Keywan Brown is a top 10 or somewhere around there. Let's say top 12. I don't remember exactly where he is. He's close enough. And then actually, then they have Marquise Johnson, who I loved as a prospect or as a recruit. So I can't say I love the Louisville running backs. There's another team that I could have pandered for even more, but I feel good going with my heart and doing it right here. So.
I totally understand. They're sticking out in the metrics, and I do like both backs. So this is not me hating on it. I think that's a good selection because this running back position is kind of crazy right now. There's not a top guy, not a like we did strategy wise with Arch, we did strategy wise with Jeremiah Smith or otherwise. Jamari Johnson, Vonneman just picked that strong, just number one guy. Well, there's maybe not that in college football at the running back position, so you want to pick multiple very solid guys. So I get that there. There's definitely some concerns with Isaac Brown, right? His durability, he's already nicked up here in the fall. Is he going to play a lot early season? Is he going to become kind of just a limited time player who's fast, explosive, but not somebody who we can ultimately rely on? And then Keywan Brown as well, a very solid player, but is he special? I do wonder how much of the efficiency running wise in that Louisville offense is just benefited from the offensive scheme and line and all that, because both the guys are so efficient. Like basically all the running backs there are lighting it up, and makes me think it's like, is it just in a way kind of like Oregon? They're just so good scheming up these running plays and otherwise. Is that kind of bleeding over into the running backs? Are they a little bit overrated? I guess I don't fully know. I like Q1 Brown. I like Isaac Brown. So those are my, I guess, thoughts with that running back room. Are they maybe overrated? Potentially, sure. But if you want the discount Notre Dame running back room from last year, I mean, this could be it, right? Isaac Brown going potentially pretty early in the NFL draft, teams falling in love with his speed, athleticism, game breaking abilities, thinking he's the next Devin Etienne. And then Kewan Brown could be like that kind of riser, sleeper type of back in the class, like a Jadarian Price who rises up kind of late and sneaks into probably more like, again, day two with those backs compared to like this year where Love and Price went in the first. But with the running back landscape right now, hey, I get where you were coming from there.
Yeah, I mean I see what you're saying. Like there are certainly some running back rooms that you could pander a little bit to. This would have been who I chose as well though. Um, Isaac Brown, really good. I know he's got the size and the durability concerns. He still played a lot of the games. Like, he may have missed some time, but he still was available for most of the season. And he's right on that 190, 195 pound, you know, precipice where I'm not really too concerned about his weight once he gets to the NFL. And I really do think Kewan Brown's going to end up being a day two pick in the NFL draft once it's all said and done, because he is going to, shoulder a lot of those carries, because Isaac Brown is just not asked of him from that Louisville offense to be that workhorse, which is fine. So I like the pick, and now I think that's both of us have taken running back room, so Aaron doesn't have to worry about that. So I think he's probably going to take a wide receiver room here, if I'm not mistaken. But maybe, I don't know. He could do whatever he wants.
Unfortunately, like I said, I think that he's probably going to end up pandering, or maybe not even necessarily pandering, but he's going to end up with that team now, and I feel like he's going to win the draft because of it, because I went with my heart, unfortunately.
Well, maybe. I mean, hey, we're just gonna have to see right with the running backs. That is to be determined. That'll be my last pick of the draft because you guys have both selected running backs thus far. Like Andy said, the strategy wise, it makes sense for me to get the next best wide receiver room. However, I'm actually between three different wide receiver rooms right now. So it is a little bit of a pandering. It is a little bit of a tough choice right now with the depth,
It
with the high
is.
end talent out there at running or at wide receiver. Okay. So I'm going to. I wouldn't even say this is pander. I think all three options are good. People are going to enjoy these wide receiver rooms a good amount. But I'm going to go with a team that has a lot of high end talent, but also some depth to it as well. And I'm going to go with Texas. So two Texas selections in this draft for me. I'm going to go with Cam Coleman, Ryan Wingo, Emmett Mosley, Jermaine Bishop, and some former high-end four-star guys, Khalil Lockett, Dalen McCutcheon, even Niblet. Who, those guys are not really going to produce. They'll be the depth pieces, but so much depth within that room. But then look at, three really talented guys that can all start there for Texas, plus Jermaine Bishop, super explosive, productive guy, kind of a smaller, like Xavier Worthy type going to Texas. Seems like a great fit there for the future. So I think for the present and future, they're set up really well at Texas. Again, I was torn with this pick, but I'm happy with it. I'm okay. Might get some hate for doubling up on Texas within this draft, but just had to do it.
You're not going to get any hate from me. I really thought that, when I was at the 101, I really thought, I should have probably studied a little harder or done some research on this before I actually, before we jumped on. But B, I was just thinking about all of the wide receiver rooms that just have all this talent, where unfortunately most of it is unproven, but there's a lot of five stars, there's a lot of four stars, there's a lot of guys that we're excited about, whether they're coming from, they're transferring in or whatever it might be. And Texas was obviously on the mind, but there was a reason why I went with Ohio State. It was just, I was like, obviously Jeremiah Smith just kind of gives you that like trump card, but Cam Coleman not that far off from, at least in my opinion. I know Andy hates him. He actually called his mom and said some not nice words the other day. It was really mean, really rude. But you know, but yeah, so I like the pick. I think I kind of knew where you were going. Once we had already taken or no, I guess Andy hasn't taken his wide receivers yet. You might have made it a little easier for Andy actually, but Andy, when you're not berating young players' mothers, what are you doing?
Well, first of all, I had a few. You're right. Texas was not necessarily on my radar because I have the question marks with Cam Coleman. I know that other people are, locked in. He's going to do fine at Texas. I think that, if Ryan Wingo ends up being a better wide receiver than Cam Coleman this year, Cam Coleman's kind of tanked. Like, that's it. He never had a season over 2 yards per route run. It's not good. Like that's not a good place to be. Even if he did have like the good market share at Auburn on a really crappy offense, I don't. I think of like Alec Manor, who had a really good market share and a crappy offense. He's kind of feel. I'm not saying the story's done on Alec Manor, but he feels like he's getting buried over there at Tennessee a little bit. So, and not to compare the players either, because obviously one was a 5-star coming out of high school, and Alec was kind of a relative unknown. So a lot of differences in the profiles and everything like that. But I really need to see Cam Coleman step it up this season in a really good receiving room, obviously because Aaron just drafted them. For me to like really consider him to be one of the top guys in this class. This one I will. There's a pander pick for sure. There's a big pandering pick that I could do. There's two really big pandering picks that I could do, kind of. I'm gonna do what I think is the sensible pick, and maybe it is pandery a little bit as well, but it's Clemson, right? Like we've seen Bryant West go. He seems healthy now. We've seen him practicing. He seems like things are looking better for him. We don't know who's going to be throwing him the ball. We assume it's going to be Christopher Vizina. We don't know how good he's going to be as a quarterback. But then you also get TJ Moore, who I've always said is maybe a hair behind Bryant Wesco or a half step behind him, but he's always been really good as well. And then add to that, you get 4-star freshman Naeem Burrows coming to the team as well. I don't know how much play he's going to get on this team. Hopefully enough to, surpass some of those year 1-0 marks. Although we're starting to see that those don't necessarily matter as much. But still, you'd like to see some production in the first year of somebody's college career. And just looking at this team, Tyler Brown's still there. I feel like Naeem Burrows is probably going to get some run in some later in the game and some of those, 5 receiver sets if they roll any of that stuff out. But I like Clemson. I think if Wesco's healthy, which it seems like he is, it seems like he's practicing full contact. TJ Moore, who, like I said, I've always been kind of high on him, just not as high as I had been on Wesco, but still never really had anything bad to say about him. So I'm just going to take them. I think they're both going to be top wide receivers in this next 2027 class, assuming they both stay healthy.
I think this is when you get into there's probably like 2 or 3 teams that I think are kind of like right in the mix here. You probably went with the top one as far as the actual talent at wide receiver, proven talent in TJ Moore and Bryant Wesco. Obviously, we have to be a little concerned with the Wesco injury, but he is practicing. He is, slated to be 100% healthy at this point. So we're hoping for the best. But obviously, anytime you deal with neck injuries, you have to practice a little bit of caution at the very least. But there's obviously question marks with Christopher Fazina. Is he going to, take the step up and actually be the guy? He's never really been able to take over and it's not like they had the greatest QBs in the past. So we do have to be a little concerned about what the QB play is. But then you mentioned Naheem Burrows, another 5-star or high 4-star prospect that's joining them as well. And as soon as you mention him, I'm like, man, it's really tough to argue that they're not at least one of the best, if not, a top 3 option in all of college football. And I think there's a couple other teams that are definitely right there around there, but I can't really argue them too much.
Yeah, and I do like the pick. I mean, Clemson, I actually had them listed as my number one when I just kind of jotted down some ideas and thoughts that I had, but obviously went a different direction and totally get it. I mean, I guess Bryant Wesco doesn't get the same hype that Cam Coleman does. Is that fair? Probably not. But I mean, Bryant Wesco also had a very severe neck injury, or at least something that they were taking a lot of caution with. And TJ Moore, he's been good, but not great yet. And Burrow's completely unproven kind of thing. So, it is a very interesting, still somewhat unproven room, but just tons of upside. And they were my listed, again, number one initially when I just put down some thoughts for wide receiver rooms. So I like it being able to get them as the last. Or is that the last? Yeah, because John went Ohio State wide receivers 101. So I am up next
Oh,
with my
hold on.
Andy's. No, he's got one more.
Take it
Oh,
easy.
Yeah.
Don't worry though, I won't snipe you because it's just my the last QB of the draft as well.
That's right.
Real quick, Andy, before you do that, I'm just I'm going back. I wanted to see what Cade Klubnik did last year. Can Vizina do that? And it's 2,943 yards and 16 passing touchdowns. And I mean, like you're barely asking for the bare minimum. Now, obviously, I think we've lost some love for Bryant Wesco and TJ Moore and any other players that were there and everything because of that. So if another year of that could hurt them even more. And then now we're not even talking about them being like high end draft picks and things like that. But if they can just get like competent QB play, I do believe in the talent of those players.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that first season, their freshman year, they were really good. That was the year that Klubnik was actually decent, and people were talking about being a first-round draft pick. But hopefully Vizina's just halfway decent. That's all we really need out of him. But speaking of quarterbacks, it's tough for me here. I think neither of these teams, I should say, offer much depth beyond their QB1s. I'm between two. I'm going to go with Darian Mensah in Miami. Just because I think Mensah has a slight edge on CJ Carr, who would have been my other option here at Notre Dame. But like I said, neither of those teams have like high-end 5-star recruits coming in or anything like that. So nobody really pushed the tiebreaker there with the backup situation. So I'll go with Mensah. You got to assume he's going to be one, in the Heisman conversation for most of the year. Obviously had a great season at Duke. Kind of had NFL hype there for a second before, Miami threw $6 million in front of him. So, whether or not they have a good backup or not, I don't think he's kind of irrelevant because they're probably just going to keep doing the same thing year after year. It seems to be their pattern. They're just going to buy whatever good quarterbacks available in the portal. But, I'm going to go with Mensah here. I think he's probably a safe bet to be a first-round draft pick next year. And, we've liked him. We've liked him for 2 off seasons. I know Aaron was a little bit, more bullish on him than the rest of us. But it didn't take us long to all get, on board with the Mensah hype train once the season got rolling last season. So I'm going to go ahead and take Mensah and, plant the flag even deeper on Mensah's pro prospects here.
It didn't take long for us. It's still taking a while for some other people, with Mensa. I don't know what's going on, but I'm still getting like, oh, you like that Mensa guy? Oh, yeah, he's a sleeper of mine. Like, oh, okay, he's my QB too. I actually thought about doing the Miami QBs and cheating and saying, I have Mensa and then whoever the transfer is from next year. But because you took him, we're gonna make it very clear on the graphic that is this year's QBs that are on Miami and no future QBs that can ever be on Miami.
That's
trying to
fair.
think.
That's fair.
I'm trying to think who's going to be there next, like JKS or something like that, or
Yeah.
It's gonna be Braden Atkinson, calling it right now.
Boy. No. He'll do the same like Cam Ward thing, like go way over to like Cam Ward was Washington State and it's Oregon State, but like similar enough, right? Jump up and then jump up again. Okay. Well, I got the last selection here. I'm going to go ahead and I don't love my options. You guys have selected some good running backs already, but I'm going to take two solid guys. One of these guys I think has very, very high upside at Michigan. And so Jordan Marshall, the solid, get it done
There
running
it
back.
is.
Probably going to be drafted. He could be a day two guy. I'll be honest. I kind of like Marshall. I just don't think he's special, but he does everything he needs to at the running back position. He has experience playing pretty significant time last year. And I also think that the coaching staff is going to come in and be able to feed these running backs well. Demonstrated that in the past, both Michigan's proven some running game over the years here, and then Utah has as well. So, and that's not even mentioning the 5-star freshman who's just phenomenal. He's super athletic. He's already pressing for significant playing time, and by the end of the year, he might be the starter. In that Savion Hyder, who is 5-star, super athletic, one of my favorite running backs that I've scouted in the last several years. So yeah, I am excited to take the Michigan duo there, though really it is a duo. After them, it's just unproven. There's not much further depth, but same thing at Oregon, same thing for a lot of the rooms out there.
Yeah, this is the one. This is the pandering. It's completely unproven. You have a terrible running back in Jordan Marshall, and then you have like one of the most exciting players that everyone has fallen in love with, who has touched the ball 0 times in college football. But he will get all of the votes because everyone loves Savion Hyder, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. As much as I do agree that he is a great prospect and everything, Jordan Marshall's terrible. Justice Haynes is gone. Can't use him anymore. So you're basically talking about you're talking about a terrible running back in Jordan Marshall, and then a high-end 5-star prospect. Those never fail, right? Oh, wait. Those fail every single year. In fact, I would almost say that the composite grading system has gotten worse at the running back level in recent years than go look at the past 5 years and see which of those 5-star running backs have hit and which ones have not, and you'll notice that most of them have not, which wasn't obviously. I mean, there's always been a lower hit rate, but we're almost at like 0% over the past few years. So not arguing it, I'm just arguing it because because Aaron went the pandering route, so I have to give him a little bit of crap for it.
Yeah, it's been a slow descent into madness.
It's
since
wondering.
the
I mean, I
Bijan-
really don't. You said.
Oop,
Go ahead,
sorry,
Aaron.
go ahead, Aaron.
I'm glitching out here. Maybe I'm done. Right, I'm crashing out.
Well, I was just gonna agree with John. Like, since like the Bijan Robinson recruiting class year, those 5-stars have kind of crashed and burned. Like the C.J. Baxters, the Nick Singletons started off hot and kind of fizzled out. It's been a hit or miss for the last few years, and a lot more misses, I should say. Not saying Savion Hyder is just going to automatically not be good because of that, because that's obviously not going to be the case. This is the highest level recruit that Michigan's had in the running back room in quite some time. So, and Michigan, loves to run the ball. Aaron mentioned it. Aaron mentioned that Utah ran the ball, who Kyle Whittingham coached for decades before taking this job at Michigan. So, if you're gonna look at the anybody in this room for this draft pick, it'd be Savion Hyder because like John said, I'm not sold on Jordan Marshall at all, which is not unknown to our audience. I've said that many times before. Um, I do think, I think we'll probably get into some honorable mentions here towards the end, but there's definitely a running back room that I probably would have taken over them, mainly because of my Jordan Marshall hate, though.
And unfortunately, we lost Aaron right as he was about to defend himself. But I now he knows how I felt last week. So that unfortunately it sucks. But we do record live, and this stuff does happen. So I mean it was the obvious choice if I wanted to go pander bear, if I wanted to pander to the audience, but I decided to go with my heart, and I feel great for it by going with my Louisville running backs that I actually truly believe in. I like you said, I'm not hating on Header, whatever. I think he has a great opportunity, and everything that we've heard so far has been amazing. He's still an unproven player though. So when it's all said and done, even though it is at 111, I will give him credit, but it is a risky pick in my opinion. This could either make or break his draft when it's all said and done. Unfortunately, so many people like Header that I think that they'll draft or they'll vote for him anyway. And because I already feel like Michigan running backs is going to take so much, of this. Your Texas QBs, your Texas wide receivers. I think Aaron's kind of running away with this one as far as the masses are concerned. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to take my heart pick again because this is not, everyone else. All I have left is tight end to pick here. And everyone's probably going, oh, okay, we got the obvious pick here. We know who you're going with. No, you don't. Because I am going with the original tight end not Iowa, but Georgia tight ends. And let me tell you why. They have so much talent in that room. It is unbelievable. You're talking about high end 4 stars, high end 5 stars, 6'5", 240 pounds, 6'7", 255 pounds, depending on who you're talking about. But it's actually kind of wild if you think back to the last few years, who have you heard for who have you heard people talking about as far as I think we might have Aaron back here. Sorry. But who have you heard talked about as like the high end tight end prospects? Lucky, Jaden Riddell, Elias Williams, and then now this year you get into Caden Prothrow. Those are all high 4 end or 4 star, high end 4 star, or I'm sorry, low end 5 star. There we go. I think I got it through. Andy's doing some math on his fingers, but high end 4 star or low end 5 star tight end prospects. They all have great size. We know Georgia loves the tight end position. I know Georgia hasn't been exciting, but there's people somewhere that are voting for Gunnar Stockton to win the Heisman this year. And while I definitely do not see that in any world, here or the multiverse, if we're expecting Gunnar Stockton to be better this year, and there's a whole new crop of receivers and everything else, and we still have all of these tight ends that are there that have so much talent that are technically unproven, but whatever. I'm going with the Georgia tight end room here, and I'm pretty happy about it. Obviously, I could have gone with the LSU tight end room, which would probably got me more votes, just because of Trey'Dez Green. But it's Trey'Dez Green and a whole bunch of nobodies, and I don't even know that Trey'Dez Green is really even that amazing in my opinion. So I'm going with the Georgia tight end group. Aaron, what would you like to give us a rebuttal on your Michigan running backs, and then what do you think of my tight end group here?
Yeah, no, it's a fun group at Georgia, but just unproven. Like at one point, I thought that Lawson Lucky was something, and then last year just kind of thoroughly underwhelming. And now there's flash. I see him and see some of the other depth tight ends there, but just don't see I don't see quite the same upside there as maybe like the tight end rooms that were selected earlier in this draft, understandably, right? But got to go with the team, and I cannot fault you with that. A lot of 5-star or high 4-star types of talents there. Mostly high end 4 stars in that tight end room at Georgia. And then I guess all I was going to say with the Michigan stuff, it's like Jordan Marshall definitely catching some strays there, being called terrible 3 times. Like that is just so uncalled for a guy who rushed for over 6 yards per carry last year, was more efficient as a receiver than Justice Haynes, and is stepping into a potential prominent role. And if he doesn't this year, it means that Savion Hyder is excellent as a true freshman to outproduce him. So, we'll see, right? We'll have to revisit this as the year goes on, but I'm not saying Jordan Marshall's great, but he's good. He deserves more respect than that. And Hyder, you don't see too many 5-star freshmen flop who impress early on and they just dominate in the spring. They come in with the athletic profile, the size, the production that he does. So, if you just say, generically, 5 stars are not as good as they used to be for the running back position, that's recency bias, and it's also not taking into account the quality of 5 stars that have been out there in recent years, which, they're giving out 5 stars to very questionable guys in previous years. I liked the couple of 5 stars with Crowell and Savion Hyder this year.
Jordan Marshall, Debbie Beth's running back 37, one spot behind Jawarn Howell at South Carolina. Andy, what do you think of Aaron's rebuttal here, and what do you think of my tight end group?
I think the recency bias thing is fair from Aaron, obviously. And I'm not hanging my hat on that argument at all either. My whole thing was more Jordan Marshall than Savion Hyder. I do think that Hyder could be really successful. As far as the tight ends, again, I wanted to grab one of the top 2 because I felt that there was a big drop-off for the third tight end room. I know that most people will tell you Trey'Dez Green is the tight end 1. I don't feel that way. It doesn't seem like anyone else here feels that way. I think he has a lot to prove. Maybe if Daquan Wright was actually allowed to come back to LSU, then it would have made sense to draft the LSU tight end room at some point. But it sounds like he's not going to be able to play there now with the SEC putting that rule into place. So I can't hate on the pick. If you're looking at just recruit star talent, yes, it's overflowing. It seems like they've always had decent tight ends throughout the years. It's been since Brock Bowers, since they've really had an elite one, obviously. But with all these names in that room, you got to assume at least one of them ends up doing something in the NFL to some extent. I don't know, but all that remains to be seen. Like Aaron said, I'm not big on Lawson Lucky. I have a little bit of hope for the Elias Williams. Jaden Riddell, I don't think he's done anything to warrant any sort of excitement. And then Caden Prothro just being a true freshman. There's a lot that needs to happen there before we can really truly start to call him a future NFL tight end.
No, I think it's really fair. Actually, Elias Williams, while mostly unproven, is actually one of the highest tight ends in Debbie Beth. I want to say he's tight end 3 or 4. So obviously completely unproven in a crowded room, but yet just what he did in a very small sample looked awesome. So if he can continue doing that, and that was one of the reasons why I kind of went with that. I really like Elias Williams. I know a lot of people have been on Lawson Lucky over the years, even Jaden Riddell, and then Caden Prothro was actually one of the higher end tight ends that I had in Fresh Bet this year. So that's why I ended up going with the Georgia tight ends there. Not really loving the tight ends on too many other groups, but that is it for our actual draft. But I guess we should probably get into a couple of honorable mentions here before we get out of here. We're already over time a little bit, so we got to make it quick. But obviously, I honestly was wondering if one of you was going to go with Notre Dame running backs. I know that they're essentially all unproven, but there's a lot of excitement for Aeneas Williams. There's a lot of excitement for Jonas Williams. There's a lot of excitement for Javian Osborne. And then people forget about Kedron Young just because he got hurt last year and everything. But he's actually being talked about a player. If you actually listen to the team, follow the team, they're talking about him being healthy and being back and all that kind of stuff. So I think that would have been one that I really wouldn't have been able to argue that much with, except for they're all unproven, for the most part.
Yeah, you know what? I'm curious. I probably could have drafted the same team that I did last year, including like I already got the Texas quarterback room. I could have went with the Georgia tight ends, right? I had an opportunity to get tight end before John did at the end there. Could have went with the Alabama wide receivers. They were not selected in this draft. I think that's an honorable mention. I kind of
Yeah,
like them
definitely.
still, right? Yeah, Ryan Coleman Williams, Latsir Brooks, Sidarian Morgan. And then with the running backs at Notre Dame, I certainly could have went them like John said as well, because I do like the group. It's just also kind of unproven at this point. Aeneas Williams probably doesn't get quite the credit that he should. And to me, there's some question of what is his ultimate upside? Is he like an elite player? Is he just a good back? But I think he'll thrive this year. He'll get a big workload, and as always, they seem to put out some good running back talent. So that's a good shout out. Or I thought like Texas Tech too, like the depth that they have at the running back room. I thought maybe they were going to be mentioned with Cameron Dickey, Jacoby Williams, and Quinton Joyner, like a three-headed monster. That's tempting, I guess, to go with the depth if you wanted to play that route, or even like the high-end hype, pandering a little bit maybe to the Alabama quarterbacks, Keelan Russell, and then if you think Austin Mack or Jet Thamala does anything, there too.
Yeah, and I was also wondering about if anyone was going to pick Florida wide receivers. I don't think anyone was going to go running backs just because I know obviously we're not the biggest fans of Jaden Bob, but there's really not much behind him as far as I'm concerned. Maybe there's some prospects that other people are excited about, but it couldn't be me. But the wide receiver core though. I mean, Eric Singleton Jr. You got your Dallas Wilson, you got your Vernell Brown, you got your Micah Mays. Is that right? There's and then obviously the everyone's favorite wide receiver that's never going to see the field, Davian Gross, is also on there. So I was wondering if anyone was going to go there just because it might not be like 100% proven high end stud, even though I do like Eric Singleton Jr. But man, there's some depth at Florida.
Yeah, I think with the Florida wide receivers, it's just like a lot of talented guys, but nobody really like in that top 12 kind of spots for me anyway. I know some people might say Dallas Wilson and Vernell Brown are at least close to the top 12. I didn't feel strongly about it. If I was going to go another route with wide receivers, I would have done Alabama, like Aaron had already said. Also, Indiana with Nick Marsh and Charlie Becker was another room that I was looking at for wide receivers. And then just to throw out my other honorable mention, I already mentioned CJ Carr when I made the Mensa pick. But for running back room, I wanted to throw out USC. Waymon Jordan is obviously the guy that everybody has as their top running back there. We all here like King Miller as a Devy running back potentially, and then Deshaun Reedow coming in as a true freshman there. I think that was another running back room you could have drafted and made an argument for. And then if you wanted to make the argument for the Georgia Tech running back room, if you're a Justice Haynes guy, and I told you all about Malachi Hostley last week. That's a guy who could potentially be a NFL running back if he continues to get the workload that he got last year, which I think is more than possible. I'm not saying that they deserve to be in the top three of all the rooms, but again, this is an honorable mention part of the show, so I figured I'd throw them out there.
Yeah, I like that call out. The USC one makes a lot of sense. I mean, I'm not the biggest Wayman Jordan guy, but I definitely like King Miller, and then Deshaun Rideau was at least a top four running back in the class for me. So I like that call out. Uh, One last QB class. I want to see if you guys have anybody else, but I wanted to call or shout out LSU, Sam Levitt and Hussein Longstreet. I was wondering if they were going to get called into the mix just because, like obviously, I mean, maybe it's biased by me, but I have a lot of Hussein Longstreets. But I'm pretty excited about him coming in after Levitt. But obviously, there's people who are, I think, kind of starting to come around to the fact that Levitt could be propped up by LSU and by the coach and everything. So I'm wondering if you guys even considered that, or if Levitt's too far gone for you at this point. And are there any other QB groupings that you would have even considered at this point?
No, again considered Alabama, but the LSU one makes sense. I think I'm fading Levitt a little bit, and Longstreet still very much a wild card. As much as I liked him coming out, still have some hope for him, but not a lot of faith necessarily that that's going to pan out either. So yeah, I mean, Andy already brought up Notre Dame. It's like CJ Carr if you just want to go with a high end type of guy. I'm not really sure what their depth is looking like currently though.
Oh yeah, and then actually, I was thinking just more for Aaron than anyone else, but I know you're like one of the biggest Jonas Williams fans, and I didn't know if you would say USC as a pick because Andy and I were saying how Jaden Maeva is kind of becoming that like sleeper QB pick for us for the year, where like he could be better than people expect, but maybe not amazing, but better than people expect kind of deal. Could end up a little higher in the NFL draft than he could. And then Jonas Williams is a fun prospect going to USC. We know obviously Lincoln Riley gets the most out of his QBs most of the time. So I wondered if you were even going to consider that one, but obviously there's better options.
Right. Yeah. Just since there was better options, it didn't really interest me in kind of going that deep. But at the same time, I mean, I've always been a little bit higher on Maeva on this podcast, I think, than everybody. Like, I've written him up, I think, every year for the Devy Guide. I definitely love Jonas Williams as well as a freshman coming in as a 4-star. He's early enrollee, impressing everything I've heard. So, yeah, I think that's a good shout out, but not necessarily quite cracking that top three.
All right, Andy. Any other teams? Any words of wisdom before we get out of here?
No, I think we covered everything. We obviously didn't mention the JKSs of the world. And no disrespect to him, obviously. He just isn't in our top three of quarterbacks right now, but it's not that we don't like him. Words of wisdom, I don't have any. Just enjoy week 0. Be thankful college football's back. I know I am. Thursday, FCS. That starts. So I know not a lot of people are excited about it. I'm not really terrifically excited about it, but it will be fun to see some football again at the Division One level, which I think we can all agree is good to have back.
Yes, and obviously you should be following Andy Starr on Twitter, which is at A Star FF, and that's 2 R's. But there's also another account, Andy, and what was that one called? A Star
So
CFF?
yeah, A Star CFF, and that's going to focus mostly on FCS guys throughout the season. Um, it's going to kind of open the. I kind of started it last year, saying that Joshua Dye and Braden Atkinson were going to be playing for D1, P4 FBS and P4 teams next year, and that happened. Like Joshua Dye is playing for Ole Miss, Braden Atkinson is playing for and starting for Oregon State. So it's going to be identifying those guys before the transfer portal opens, and just kind of highlighting some of the bigger performances in the FCS as the season progresses.
Yeah, so that's obviously deeper than we ever go on this pod. So if you want to follow that kind of stuff, make sure you're following Andy at A Star FF on Twitter, and then make sure you're following him, his secondary account, the CFF one, at A Star at CFF on Twitter, A Star CFF, and that's both of those are with 2 R's in the star. So make sure you're doing that. And just a really quick recap, then we'll get the hell out of here. I took the Ohio State wide receivers, the Ohio State QBs, the Louisville running backs, and the Georgia tight ends in our positional draft. Aaron took the Texas QBs, the Oregon tight ends, the Texas wide receivers, and the Michigan running backs. Even the Jordan Marshall sucks. And Andy took the Oregon running backs, the Iowa tight ends, the Clemson wide receivers, and the Miami QBs, which is basically the Miami Darian Mensahs. And so yeah, you'll have to let us know who you thought won. We'll obviously put out a poll and do all that kind of good stuff, so you can let us know. And please don't just vote for Aaron just because he has Savion Hitter. Just don't do it. Come on.
Well, do it because he's the best high potential running back selected today. Definitely.
Yeah, yeah, and none of these running back prospects ever miss. It never happens.
We'll see here in a week. I am excited to see these poll results.
I am too, but more importantly, I'm excited to see college football. I'm excited to see football in general. We have, like Andy was saying, we actually have some week zero, and we have some like FCS teams going. We have all kinds of stuff going. So make sure you're following all of us. Make sure you're following the Gridiron Ratings YouTube channel. Make sure you're checking us out on DLF. Let DLF know that you love the Devy Devotional, so they keep us around and all that kind of good stuff. So we appreciate you guys listening. Hopefully this was a fun one right before the season gets started, and we will get into actual analysis of football, college football, and everything else around it in the near future. But for now, we're going to go ahead and cash out. See you guys.